Good evening, everybody. It's R.A.N.T here for episode 26. And today I'm here with my friend Scott. I'll allow him to introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Scott Mindel. I'm 34 years old. I I could go on about other stuff like that, but probably not. I in for the not this year, but the 4 or 5 years prior, I was long distance chair for USATF New England. I was just primarily a runner, but now the team captain of CMS, the same club Adam is back on again, which is good. And this is my fifth or sixth year being sponsored by Nuun, and second year in a row that I'm a Nuun Elite athlete, which is good for me.
Scott, that was probably the greatest intro. And what I like about this format is this is unedited. I'm not sure what the viewers will see, but I was cracking up on my end when you said 34 years old.
Yep.
So, the point of this episode is we're going to talk about the state of racing right now, the state of the running world. I noticed that for USA Track and Field New England, there is absolutely nothing on the race calendar right now, officially on the website.
Yeah. So, when I was still chair last year, obviously, we ran the first race, which was the Super Sunday 5 miler in Cambridge. And then everything started getting canceled. I think New Bedford got canceled 2 days before the race. And that was kind of the beginning of the end of the 2020 racing series. We were able to do a couple cross-country races. I ran New England's. They had also done, and that was in Mine Falls in Nashua, New Hampshire. And a couple weeks before that, they did Mayor's Cup at Franklin Park. That was for more limited, a couple of club teams. And then we had a few teams do a relay race at Franklin Park in December, or November. I ran it, but the exact date escapes me. But that was kind of cool. It was a 3-person relay, and everyone did like a roughly like 2K-ish, a little over 2K-ish loop. I was the only one on my team, so I ran all 3 loops.
All right.
But besides that, there really hasn't been that much on the USATF side. I'm not the chair anymore, so I'm not completely privy to what's going on. But the last time I talked with them, they're going to try and do any of the races that were supposed to happen last year this year. Not really coming as a surprise, New Bedford has already canceled.
Right.
For road racing in Massachusetts, it's going to have to be stage 4, which is when I don't know specifically, but it seems like it's going to be after at least a couple months of everyone, at least in Massachusetts, having access to the vaccine. So I know BAA announced that if they are allowed to run Boston in October 11th, that they will. Honestly, I think the best chance of a Boston in October is probably like what London was and Tokyo was last year. Elite only, probably loops of Boston Common or something like that.
So it wouldn't be the same course.
I don't think, if they're only doing elite runners, I can't see them shutting down all those towns and everything.
Yeah,
If it,
the
even if
permits,
it,
right?
what?
The permits from the towns.
Yeah, so every town is, like Boston has had its own restrictions compared to pretty much the rest of the state. I mean, Boston's probably the most restrictive. So if Boston allows it, I feel like the others will allow it. I could be wrong, especially because it would be a holiday, but if they're only having like 200 elites or whatever number they decide, um, I can't imagine that they're going to run from Hopkinton all the way to Boston. Like London didn't do that. And I believe Tokyo didn't do that either. I think instead of running their traditional courses, they just did smaller loops in the city just to cut down on traffic closures and stuff. I think I'd love for there to be an actual Boston. Um, I can't see it being any more than a couple thousand. I don't think it'll be 30,000. I know London says that they want to have 50,000 runners in October, but they're locked down worse than we are, so I don't know how that's going to happen. But on the USATF and specifically New England side, so theoretically Vermont City Marathon would be the first up Memorial Day weekend. I know that I don't know if it's Run Vermont. Run Vermont is the organization that puts on Vermont City. But I did hear that there's going to be a half marathon in the next couple months before Vermont City would be, where they're thinking about doing, I think maybe two or three waves every 30 minutes of 200 runners. So it's possible that depending on how things go with the vaccine and stuff, that Vermont City could happen. And then most of the other USATF races were in the summer, fall anyway, so they'll have more of a chance of happening. And track and cross country are kind of the same thing. I mean, there were some track races, not really to the general public. It was more, for invitational type stuff. And I think that's going to be the case for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, so I've noticed that a lot of races seem to be optimistic about a return maybe in May, and then some of them in the fall. So some of these more prime time races, we'll call it. Like for example, a big one for me is like the Broad Street Run in Philadelphia. That's a 10-mile race. As far as we know today, they're still anticipating putting that race on in May. And then I've noticed, all the world major marathons looking to have it in October, and some of those races like the Cherry Blossom 10 miler in Washington, D.C. I think they're looking to be back in October as opposed to the usual February start.
That would be interesting because Army 10 miler is also in October, and that's a very large race as well.
So before, everything got canceled with COVID, I had an elite entry into the Cherry Blossom 10 miler. So I don't know if I can get it back now. I'm not,
right. Yeah.
I'm so confused, but it would have been great. So since we're on the topic of races, let's provide our fellow runners with maybe some useful links, some useful places where we can go out and find races right now.
Yep.
So,
probably my go-to one, and I ran a couple races last year with them, and they have plenty of races this year. Millennium Running in New Hampshire. John Mortimer, who runs the store and the running company, he worked with the New Hampshire governor to come up with their guidelines for safe racing and stuff. So they actually never really had a time that they couldn't have road races. I did the New Hampshire 10 miler, which has been a USATF race, and it potentially would be this year if it happens. And I also did a Oktoberfest 5K, and his races are good. It's like one or two people depending on the race, start at the same time every 10 seconds. So it's all chip timing. And they have a whole bunch of different distance races. Obviously, all the races, or most of them at least, are in New Hampshire. They have a marathon that's in Massachusetts, but I don't know how I think that's supposed to be in the May time frame. I could be wrong about that, but I'm not sure how that's going to work with the Massachusetts rules. So they're millenniumrunning.com. And then, like I had kind of said with Vermont City, runvermont.org, besides Vermont City, also puts on several races in the Vermont area. And I know Vermont had some races this year towards the end of the year. It seems like Vermont and New Hampshire are the two states that around here that are most friendly towards road racing. Then probably Maine. Although I'm not sure if Maine has had very many races, and I would say Massachusetts has Rhode Island had some road racing?
Not really. I mean, I know there was something on New Year's Day, but it got canceled.
Yeah,
I think there's racing, but it's very limited and it's
right.
on by local running clubs.
Yep.
Like, you know, my local running club here in Providence, the Ronald McDonald House,
Yeah.
put on their own 5K and their own 10K, and pretty sure it was spread out, but masks were required.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's also small, you know, and it's not USA Track and Field certified or anything.
Right. Yeah, and another good thing to look out for, and this one isn't necessary. Well, so I just recently did a Trials of Miles racing series. They called it Chase the Throne. So it was in Boston, Austin, New York City, and San Francisco, and up to 32 men and women for each region signed up. And you were randomly put into a 32 person bracket. So the first week I was racing a random person, and then whoever won that matchup, so there were 16 matchups the first round, moved on to the second round. So, and they were all random distances. The first one for Boston was starting at the Mass Ave or whatever, the bridge to go to MIT, and then you run along the river to the Museum of Science and back along the Esplanade. And then the second round, so those were 8 matchups with 16. You did it's close to 1,200 meters. There's a loop at the Harvard Athletic Complex that's pretty popular. So that was the second round, and then the third round was 4 matchups, and that one was like a 4.2 mile loop. There's a loop right across the street from Harvard Athletic Complex, where you run along the river and you never have to cross any roads. So it's I like doing that loop for longer marathon workouts and stuff. So that was the third round, and then the last round was supposed to be roughly a mile around Boston Common and Boston Garden, but there's construction there. So we did 1 lap at Fresh Pond, which is in Cambridge. It's like 2.4 miles. And so that one, I think most of the girls still ran on their own, but I knew the other 3 guys. So we met this past Sunday and had an actual official race. So that was pretty cool. And then, but there's also been, like, nationally, there's been some virtual Grand Prix that are similar. You're more like submitting your time for the different distances. So
Yeah,
there's stuff like that too.
Well, so I know I did a 10K, which I found on the USA Track and Field website,
Yep.
virtual 10K. And for like a couple months there, they had a virtual 5K,
Yep.
virtual 10, and I think it was a 12K. Do you remember that?
Yeah, that makes sense, because that's like the 12K is like their national road championship distance.
And so anyways, that's another site. So what I'm going to do, folks, if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm going to put the links in the description. So if you're looking for races, you're going to have a place to find them, you know, right there. So another place is I have a website called findmymarathon.com where it's someone made this really nice list of marathons that are still happening during COVID, which is great. Another place that I know you can look for races is called directathletics.com.
Yep.
And that tends to be for more track and fields and cross country. But hey, I mean, I'd love to run a fast 5K.
Exactly.
And so, yeah, I got a question for you, Scott. Since you
Yep.
are my team manager, we do race quite a bit. Not so much this year. But what's it like to toe the line against me? What goes through your head if you see me right next to you on the starting line?
I have to figure out how to beat you. Um,
Well, what do you say?
uh,
When we
it's a
battle, I'll tell you what it's like on my end, and you tell me what it's like on yours.
okay.
You want me to begin?
Sure.
Okay, so when I'm racing you, it's a mystery because the gun goes off, I start running, I don't see you. And then when I'm crossing the finish line, it's like you're right there. So I don't know what you're doing at any other point in the race, but when it comes to the finish line, you're somehow right there.
Yeah, I would say I'm usually a slower starter.
Okay.
So, yeah, like you get out really well, and then I kind of slow and steady it wins the race. That's my strategy. I don't really win that much anymore, but slow and steady is kind of my motto. So usually towards the end of the race, I like to try and pick off people, and that kind of helps give me momentum for the finish. But like when I'm racing someone like you, where probably the only distance I probably have an advantage over you is a longer marathon. I need to kind of keep you in. I need to keep engaged with you because I think that that trail race that we ran, you got a good lead on me right away, and I wasn't able to make it up. So I got to try and keep you in my sights if I want to stay near you.
Well, I mean, give yourself some credit. I know that you had been like fresh off a marathon that weekend. That was not an easy trail race.
No.
I know that inexperience totally caught up with me with maybe a half mile or a mile to go. And any other time we've raced, it's been much closer than that, much, much, much closer. And I think that was really apparent when we ran the Westfield
Yep.
5K.
Yeah, that was a good race.
Yeah. And then any other race after that, I mean, Bridge of Flowers, 8K.
Yep.
That was another one. I crossed the finish line. I turn around and you and Dan Vasallo are
Yeah,
like,
we were screaming down the hill trying to catch you. Didn't quite make it there. But yeah, it was us and Neil Darmody from Whirl Away. We were all racing. We probably ran like 4:30 something pace down that hill. It was
well, he caught me that day. And then when it came time
right.
for Lone Gull,
Yeah, you had a good race at Lone Goal.
well, I've gotten even better since. So I'm kind of excited to toe the
Right.
line at some point in the near future. And actually, even though there's not a lot of racing going on during COVID, I'm putting in more work than I ever had in my, in
Nice.
my entire life. Actually, I just came from the gym before this call.
Oh, nice.
So I'm feeling good. I feel like $1,000,000. I can't wait to get out there.
Yeah,
And I'm ready to go, man. As soon as we got a race together, and I'm so excited to be back with Central Mass Striders.
I know. We're glad to have you back. That's for sure.
Oh, dude, I remember 2011 or 2012, I got recruited by then team manager Alan Bernier.
Oh, wow.
He gave me a free pair of sunglasses and shoes. And yeah, he asked me at a BU mini meet. I remember
Oh,
that.
cool.
Yeah, I ran a really good 3K that day. I ran like 8:36 or
Oh,
something.
nice.
Yeah, I felt really good. And so, hey, man, This was a great episode. Thank you very
Yeah,
much for being my guest today.
no problem.
Anything you want to plug before we go?
Um, no, I mean, we were kind of talking about the all-terrain series
Oh
for
yeah, that's right.
USATF. Hopefully something like that'll happen again. Uh, it's a cool series because it was trail like we were talking about, road race, track race. I think we just did outdoor, or it was indoor or outdoor. Sometimes it's been both. A mountain race. But for all you people that might not run mountain races, like myself included, they're usually some of the easiest mountain races, if you even want to call some of them mountain races. They're more like an uphill race.
Well,
Um,
hey, I mean, I got to credit you for bringing that back. I mean, that was what I really like about the all-terrain series is I think it's really like a testament to like a well-rounded athlete. You know what I mean?
right.
And, I know every now and then people might consider me a runner, but I think I spend just as much time in the gym as I do running. I do a
Hmm.
lot of other training in addition to running. And so I think the All Terrain series really puts a spotlight on maybe those non-traditional
Hmm.
runners, And so thank you for bringing that back. And I know you've
Yeah.
always done well. Have you won one?
I won the year before you did it, and then you beat me.
So I am still the defending champion only because there was no all-terrain series last year. I know that there was, an ad for it.
Yep.
Um, but I think the worst race originally thought it was going to be the 800 meter. It was not. The worst race in that series was the mountain race.
Yeah, that I wasn't able to run that because I think I was doing Mount Washington like a week or two later, and it was
Mhm.
basically half of Mount Washington. And I know all of Mount Washington was really tough. So, yeah, that was much tougher than the year that I won it, all terrain series. It was Wachusett.
Ah,
That one is a nice introduction into mountain running.
I can't even imagine. I just know that another thing about mountain running is it doesn't seem like a fast 5K necessarily means you're a good mountain runner. Like I
Right.
was getting beat by guys where I'm thinking like,
Oh,
no way.
yeah.
If we were on the track or if we were on the road, this wouldn't even be close. You know what I mean? That's a specialty event right there.
Yep.
But anyways, we're gonna bring this session to a close, my man. Thank
All
you
right.
very
Sounds
much.
good. Thanks for having
And
me.
I'll see you out there soon. I
All
promise.
right. Yep.
And I got to make sure you don't close that gap on me. I got to really like hammer the 440s the whole way or something.
Yeah, I'm running pretty well, training with some of the BAA guys, so better
Whoa.
watch out.
All right. Hey, I believe it, man. I'm scared of you. All right. Thank you, Scott.
Yep. Bye.